Hello and welcome to the Turn Podcast. Today we're talking with Paul Holton, who is a factory McLaren driver with Compass Racing and is competing in IMSA GTD and GS this year. Paul started racing as a club driver and quickly climbed his way through the ranks to now be one of the very lucky few driving in the brand new McLaren 720S GT3. Today we'll share Paul's story from what cars bring the best racing to grip level management to who will be the next evil super genius who will inevitably take over the world. We had some technical difficulties with the recording, but if you can ignore some of the audio quality glitches, you'll get a chance to listen and learn from one of IMSA's up-and-comers. So let's jump into it. So how you doing? Nice. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you bet. So you're down in Florida.
Yes, I live in Orlando. You
Okay.
are all the way up in the, like, what I consider the frozen north, right?
Yeah, I know. It pretty much is. Yeah. I mean, half the year it's just sleep and work is all it is.
That doesn't sound too different from here.
Yeah. I actually went down to Sebring for the
Instagram for the Super Sebring weekend.
Yeah. I met up with Charlie Eastwood in WEC, and so we actually didn't even stay for the 12-hour. We were just there for WEC, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was actually my first time going there.
It's a wild place.
Yeah, it's really cool because I mean, there's so many people camped out. You can kind of just explore, on the spectator side, and just kind of,
It's actually amazing how like cleaned up it is now compared to even just like what it was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Oh,
like,
really?
It used to be so much more rowdy.
Huh? Yeah, I suppose. I mean,
no, it's nice. It's really nice now. It's
right.
I guess some of the the wildest, best stories aren't happening anymore, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, especially. I mean, they've been doing it for so long. For a while, it was probably kind of the wild old days of racing, basically.
Yeah, there's some good stories, and there's good reasons why they don't allow fires in the infield and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. No, it was cool because there's like so many campers around, and there's like. And then there'll be like clusters of campers, and they'll all have like they'll be grilling out and stuff, and
they've got their setup going. They've built their little compound together.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of times where we'd meet people, and they'd be like, "Yeah, we've been doing this for 20 years. This is just what we do," and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, we were looking for a place to spot from for our race, and there's this dude that's rented out like 3 RV spots outside of turn 1 and but rents those spots then subsequently out to like Ganassi and Penske for them to put their genie lifts on, and that's how he pays for his Sebring trip.
Jeez. Yeah, and then there's all these like Class A motorhomes, like these $1 million motorhomes, and they're all lined up. And it's there's some money there. It's
the $1 million motorhome right next to like the like I don't even know how to describe something. Like a dump truck.
There's these junkers. Yeah, I know. That's what's cool. I mean, it's just the money there. It's unbelievable. Not only that, but I mean, all of the race cars and it's pretty cool. It's a cool environment. That's a big thing. Yeah, because like you don't get that in sim racing, obviously. But even like my girlfriend that came with, she isn't a racing fan at all, and she's like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, I will say they did a really good job with that event. Like there were a lot of ways they could have screwed that one up, but they managed not to.
Yeah, it went pretty smooth.
The FIA.
Although I guess the WC teams, they were kind of a little bit ticked off or whatever, because they had to make all of the makeshift tents to act as the garage, and so apparently the track like a week or two before the race. They're like, hey, it's going to be an extra $25,000 to put out these tents, and that's going to be your garage. And they're like, and then it's like you can either pay it or not come.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, because yeah, it was weird having the pits for WEC be on that back straight, but it was cool though too.
It was a good solution, and it came in handy on some of the IMSA races because some stranded cars were able to duck into it and keep.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
Yellow a couple times.
I think the only problem they had with it for the teams wise was this as well, because there was a huge fence in between the pits and the garages. So if they're, if they needed to do like, a new fender or something, or if the car had to come in and they needed a part, they'd have to go all the way around like this huge fence and like sprint to the garage.
To the American style of pit lane for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it was kind of cool. Because we had passes back there. We had like just a full like paddock pass. So we'd be back there and all of a sudden we'd see like 3 or 4 like pit crew people just like sprinting to the garage to get parts.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so you're racing this year in GTD and in a GT4 as well?
Yes, the two.
That's cool.
Yeah, it makes so like Mid-Ohio was my first weekend doing both, and it some of the days got really busy. It's a lot.
Right.
Just not necessarily driving wise, but there's a lot of stuff to manage between all the different meetings that you have between two different programs, and then you double that. You have 2 drivers meetings to go to all of a sudden. 2 autographs. Everything basically doubles. So what the normal weekend load was got way bigger, frankly.
Well, and then you're also gonna. I mean, you have the feel for a GT3 and a GT4 car, which is obviously 2 different cars. So, I mean,
yeah,
I kind of manage that, but
especially around like Mid-Ohio. They're not too different to drive. It's just a matter of how much speed you're arriving at those places with. Like both cars, going into like China Beach into turn 4 there, it's a matter of braking at like 400 board in the GT4 car and like the 350 board in the GT3 car. So it's not like hopping into a prototype or something where it's a really big difference. It's just that like in the GT3 car, you're arriving there with 15 miles an hour more speed and bleeding off 15 miles an hour less, and doing it in slightly less distance. So, and well, GT3 car is just it's a race car, so it makes things easier than say GT4 cars do sometimes.
Yeah, because it's got quite a bit more downforce.
Yeah, well, and especially like with the McLaren, the GT4 car, it's very very similar to its street car variant, so it tends to have some of those characteristics, and it's very easy to overdrive the car, whereas GT3 you can push it quite hard.
Sure.
Kind of use the car a bit more. It's a race car rather than driving a street car around.
Right, because you can have actual like race suspension.
Yeah, it's all. Well, the statistic for us is like the GT4 car is like 75% street car parts or 80% street car parts, and the GT3 car is like 92% race car parts.
Right.
Which is a lot.
Right. And then I was looking at your pages. So you started, because then you were doing the Audi TT, and then before that was it the Kia or something, or?
So I've raced B-Spec and a Honda Fit. I've raced a lot of Spec Miata, which is actually still probably the most fun racing to do. Definitely not the most fun car to drive, but in terms of how you can actually race them, by far the most fun. The TT Cup was an eye opener. That was really interesting and really neat. A really big privilege to do. And then that's basically the same car as the RS3 and TCR car, which I raced over on this side of the world in World Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And that was at the beginning of my and the Ford. I did that as well. Wow, I'm forgetting all the things I've driven.
So when did you start then?
My first season was 2014. First time I jumped in a race car was 2013.
Oh wow!
About 6 years. Yeah. There's a go-kart track outside of the town I grew up in, Tallahassee, and I went a couple times, and I kind of fell in love with it and started going club racing from there. And then it was just a snowball effect down a very steep slope.
Right. Yeah, because that's the thing is you can't really just go from no experience to getting into a GT3. I mean, there's a lot of steps you kind of have to prove yourself in first.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of steps you have to prove yourself in, and hopefully you have the right people helping you prepare for that as well. Like, it's not like I just jumped in the GT3 car for the first time this weekend or this past weekend in Mid Ohio. I had thousands of kilometers of testing in that 720, and I was given opportunities to test previous generation cars before that to get up to speed. So it's not like I just jumped in and knew. I definitely had some learning and was taught. But it's like anything else. You have to. Only a very, very select few people just know how to do it. Most everyone has to learn, and then talent takes over from there.
Right. So then, have you kind of done like a little bit of everything, like coaching, even like sim training, and then just actual track time, or what was kind of the different ways that you've kind of different tools, I guess, you've used?
The single learning how to drive. Spec Miata was learning how to drive and learning how to race. Spec Miata was really, really good for the basics because it's definitely it's a momentum car, but it's a momentum car, but the really fast guys don't drive it like a momentum car. If you follow me, a lot of people tell you that when you're in a Miata, you want to be at full throttle, like almost right after you turn in to get the best possible apex. Well, that's right, yes, but at the same time, like if you can roll a little more speed in and still pick up the throttle early, but maybe not that early, that's definitely more advantageous. But it's a very small split in lap time at that point, so only the really, really good guys do that kind of that entry speed maneuver. And then that translates into things with aero from there. So it's interesting how a Miata can actually teach you a skill that you that you need later when you're driving a something with 2,000 pounds of downforce that actually rewards the entry speed.
Right.
So that's to me is the single most where I spent the most time learning was in Miatas. Now I spend a lot of time on the sim because I love playing with setups at different tracks, and it's really easy to swing setups in the sim, obviously.
Right.
And just do dumb things at dumb places. Like, when will anyone ever drive the HPD ARX at night at the Nordschleife?
Exactly. Yeah.
I will on the sim.
Yeah.
No one else will ever in real life.
Yeah, that's the thing, and even I know. I mean, I mentioned it a lot, but in my first episode with David Perrell, he uses it as a tool like that as well to perfect his craft, and he would a lot of times he would set it up so that he would have like chronic understeer and then learn how to drive fast with that, and then go the other way and then have use or drive cars
That's
with
interesting.
oversteer and then get fast with that.
See, I'll vary the track grip level and then work the setup to go as fast as possible with that grip level.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, say you're going to Mid Ohio or before this past weekend, I would take a day on the sim and start in the morning with the lowest possible grip level, and throughout the day run different sessions with more and more and more grip, working up to the end of the day. So, I mean, theoretically, right, as a car picks up grip, you're going to gain understeer, so you should be loosening the car up throughout the day, throughout all these runs.
Right.
But it may not go that way. Maybe there's some characteristic in the track that prevents you from doing that, and you have to figure something else out.
Because what it all kind of comes down to, I mean, from my limited knowledge, I guess, is how often you can be at the limit and how close you can be there. And like, especially like using the sim, not at at a certain level, you're not worried about breaking points and stuff like that and where to turn in. It's how good are you at being on the limit. Does that make sense? Because that
Yeah,
grip level is always going to change, like you say.
yeah. It's at some point, like you know where your marks are. It's just a matter of uh, fine tuning them to the grip at that point in time, right? It's like it's like driving anything at the end of the day, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what driving a race car is. You know what your marks are. You know that this car can brake, that X car going into B corner can brake at the 300 board, but you know this lap maybe there's a little bit of dust down or your tires are a little hot or whatever, so you hit the brakes at the 300 board, and maybe you're not slowing down quite enough and you're 3 meters wide, and you have to figure out how to still make it down to or 3 meters late turning in, and you
Mm-hmm.
still have to make it to the apex. So
Right.
that's that grip level management that you're talking about, the finding the limit and riding just under it or right at it on it.
And then traffic brings a whole nother, world.
I got I got the traffic lesson pretty good this past weekend.
Oh yeah.
It was the first time
That's
for me in a little while being the slowest class,
sure.
and especially with such a big speed differential that there is in DPI.
Right.
Like there was one time I was going through the S's, the S's at it was like the first session or something that we were out, um, and it's a left, right, and then a right up the hill into Thunder Valley. And at that right-hand apex in the middle of the S's, I went to turn back to the right to hit it, and there was a DPI there, and I was like, "Oh, that wasn't there just a second ago."
Right.
My hands, like, try not
And
to
that's a hard track too.
turn back in. Like, they sneak up on you so fast,
Right.
and it's also a matter of learning what's faster. Is it faster to block them at that point in time, or is it faster to let them by? And that
Right.
depending on where you are on track is different. I got to learn a little bit about that on Saturday.
Yeah, and the thing is, especially Mid Ohio, like I've never really been a fan of that track, just because especially for like now that you have basically a P2 car on there, like it's such a small, cramped track almost. It feels to have, to have those classes. It's more like it's a great track for slower cars. I feel like it's a great track, but when you're getting cars that are that fast, I don't know.
It's almost like that the cars are so fast that they need to just be like time trial only, like in DPI, like because like you can't race them, right?
Right. Yeah, and although it seems really popular. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Well, I just mean like at Mid Ohio, this is so cramped for them, so tight, not enough room for them to really
Yeah.
just like stretch their legs and run.
And that's kind of a thing with like just I think American racing in general. It's just they're not the same type of circuits generally. It's a lot of think of like VIR or Mid Ohio or like trying to think Road
Like
America.
in
They're kind of
general,
like, yeah,
we kind of like in general, Europeans connect their corners with straights, and in general, we like to connect our corners with more corners. If that kind of makes sense, like
yeah,
our like European tracks tend to, especially now with Formula, like how they're building tracks, they tend to be very kind of cut and dry and choppy and like turn straight, brake, turn straight, brake. Like there's no like flowing sections of corners like the infield section of Mid Ohio where there's not any part where you're actually not turning or you're just driving straight. It's
right.
all it's all this complicated, or like turns 3 through 5 at Sebring or 10 through 13 at Sebring.
I wonder if that's more because like American racing, like circuit racing, really it came from more of like street cars, and over in Europe, you know, a lot of those tracks are F1. They kind of built more for F1, and ours were more for sports cars, maybe. But
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know.
you know, because really the only proper F1 track is in Texas, but
yeah, and the only one before that is Watkins.
right,
But that was still when we were building racetracks like we wanted to.
right, yeah, yeah. No, it's cool though. I mean, IMSA, it's cool because I mean, IMSA right now, they have so many teams participating, and they've really been growing. It seems.
It's yeah, absolutely, totally. I mean, it's the level of WEC, to be honest.
Right,
To compete, it's the same level. Especially like DPI, I'd say it's much harder to win a DPI race than it is for Toyota to win an LMP1 race right now.
right.
Not to belittle Toyota or their accomplishments or that car, because it's obviously an awesome car, but it's definitely harder to be a DPI competitor than to be an LMP1H competitor at the moment.
Well, they're having a huge I don't know, yeah, they're having a huge crisis right now. I feel their series is in danger.
Oh, I bet you it goes DPI. I would not be surprised one bit if the ACO is just like, you know what, Plan B, yeah, DPI. We signed this deal with NASCAR. Whoop-de-doo.
And I was reading some of the articles you were sharing on your Facebook, and is it Zach Brown, the CEO of McLaren?
Yes.
Yeah, he was saying that he'd like, because they're talking, you know, for 2020 to 2021 doing the hypercar class, and they want to include the hypercar class with the LMP1 and then just BOP it, which from my understanding, I guess. But yeah, Zach Brown was saying that he wishes it would be production car based only, and I would really agree. It seems like it would be more interesting.
From a BOP standpoint, yeah, it needs to be one or the other, because a production car chassis aerodynamically can never create the downforce in a way that a prototype chassis can, just because of how much wider a production car monocoque is, right? Because you fit two people inside of them instead of one person plus like a little miniature seat. So I think that they would be really dumb to try and balance prototypes and street cars together into it. Like that's just. I mean, yeah, they do that in GT4 already. They balance street cars and actual like race cars, like the KTM Expo and the Ginetta, and the Expo and the Ginetta end up with literally 0 horsepower and a ton of weight and a ton of ride height because they handle and drive like race cars,
right?
And everything else doesn't. So you end up with this disparity where they make their lap time in this very corner centric way. They make their lap time through the corners, and then you end up with all the rest of the street car derived cars that are horsepower cars, and so they race differently, and you get issues because of that, and then you have EOP complications because of that, and everyone's unhappy. So I feel like they're just going to do that on a multi-million-dollar scale instead of a couple $100,000 scale.
Right. Well, and then you have, especially even for like say Toyota to be spending, I mean, upwards of whatever it is, 400 million, 500 million for a year, to now getting bopped with a production hypercar. They wouldn't be happy either because of their investment. But it's just, yeah, it's a real mess.
If you're
It's too
Toyota
bad.
and the FIA walked up right now and was like, hey, we're going to do this DPI thing. You can invest $20 million this year and have a winning program. Down from $400 million, how could you say no? Like,
Yeah.
how can, like, I don't know, like, just relax on the hybrid thing. We don't really need the hybrid thing.
Right. Yeah, because that's the thing is there's always been, sort of the top class, which is supposed to translate over to, the production side for manufacturers, which is why they went with the hybrid thing. But it's going to be interesting now, say in the decades to come, to see what kind of changes happen with racing, just because now you've got electric coming into the picture, and it's going to be, well, do we want to go back to more grassroots, or do we want to try to advance and go all electric? Or like with a lot of manufacturers, they're going back to having, like say Porsche, they have the limited editions that are manual only, and people do it because it's just more interesting to drive, and it's more fun. And yeah, well, it'll be interesting. But so going back to your early days, I'd like to hear more about like how you got into racing and how like you found sponsors and kind of what really sparked that for you.
I got into it really. I liked watching global rallycross and drifting. Well, unfortunately, global rallycross is now totally in the dust. And Formula Drift and kind of the more showy side of motorsports. Certainly the more I was certainly into kind of like the more bite-sized nuggets. My attention span for it was not as long at the time. It needed to be the kind of really cool stuff, and slowly that matured over time into the actual love for the sports car racing. Mainly because I think once I got into it, like I wanted to do global rallycross. That was the cool thing, but the go-karting and the sports car racing was what was available and in my face in Florida. In Florida, the club racing is quite prevalent, especially in Central Florida.
Right.
There's a lot of involvement. In fact, the Central Florida region is one of the largest regions of the SCCA. So that kind of went down that path instead of the global rallycross path. Frankly, it was probably a good decision given where I am now.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. So then, and then it kind of just spirals out of control from there.
It does. You kind of get into the first thing, and you get roped into the season of TCB, meeting this Shea Holbrook and her father, and it goes on from there. And it's like you get a win and a couple podiums, and it's like, okay, well, you're kind of doing okay, kind of not going down the wrong direction. How do we go farther? So I met Carl Thompson, who effectively manages me, and has since 2015 or end of 2014 helped the guy. Basically, is one of the decision makers in what I do and where I go. And he's been critical in my development. Like I wouldn't be driving where I am or what I've done or half of what I've done without him.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a mentor.
Yeah, mentor for sure. I mean, he's done a good job of placing me with guys like that as well. Like I got to drive with Pierre for the year in the Mustang, and he's got so much experience. And Matt's been really good from the past couple of years with him. And you don't really have to do much other than just listen, and you'll absorb stuff from him, and especially and then the people that hang around with him. That successful people hang around other successful people. So
yeah, for sure.
He's been really good.
So then you kind of start, so you're doing like club racing, you get into like SCCA, and then, you make connections, you kind of get wins under your belt, meet new people. And then, so then at what point do you get the call from McLaren? I mean, do you reach out? Is it mutual connections?
So the McLaren thing came along because Compass Racing moved to, Compass Racing bought two McLarens 2017 when they were first available to customers, and we were just a customer team at that point. We had a great sponsor for the year for me and Matt, Alpha Clone, this ETF out of San Francisco that they actually we approached them. They were already using motorsports as an analogy for their algorithm that they were using, so it kind of made good sense sponsorship wise, and that worked out for the year. And then I guess I had like 3 or 4 poles that year, and we were quite fast. We won at Coda. Should have won a couple more times, but didn't. And from there, at the end of that year, I was offered the factory deal with McLaren. I was offered it. I had gone and tested with CRS actually, who was at the time the contractor for McLaren to run their GT program. Had tested in the old 650 and had gone rather quick.
Wow.
And I don't know if that had, I have no idea if that had anything to do with it, but it was around the same time. Kind of called me up and went, hey, we're going to do this thing for next year. Give you a 1-year contract, and then at the end of last year, offered me a deal for 2 more years. So that was really kind of cool.
So then at that point is McLaren, like, are they helping fund the at that, or like how's that? Is it mostly from the sponsor still, or?
So I get a paycheck from McLaren. McLaren does help subsidize some programs and some parts of the program, but like the Compass program is run mostly on sponsorship at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super cool with that ETF too. It's like
that was really awesome. They were cool. Alpha Clone.
Huh. So then, what kind of goals do you have for the future then?
I want to race the highest level I can for manufacturer. I don't. That's to me was where it's at. Like GTE is utterly amazing racing. I'm not too crazy about. I mean, IndyCar would be awesome and cool, but I'd much prefer if I had the choice to be racing a full season on a factory race team than in an IndyCar team.
Right.
Not to say that I don't like IndyCar, but I think it's a different level when you actually are representing the manufacturer, because it's not just about you.
Oh, and then you're also building. I mean, you're building out a longer career.
Yeah, and you're getting to show stuff off that's cool. Like I get to go and instruct in McLarens at pure McLaren events, and those, like the street car is
Right.
actually an amazing car, and it's amazing to get to go drive it. Like
Right.
they are stupid fast and stupid fun to drive. They're spaceships, and so that's a great perk of it to get to go and do that. And frankly, I get to say I work for McLaren. Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's the thing is, it's unbelievable actually the growth that they've had in the last 10 years. Cause I mean, I remember,
automotive as a company. Yeah, absolutely.
right.
Incredible.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a lot of, I don't know, like people would say like, wow, they're coming out with cars way too often, cause they had like the 12C, and then they went to the, what was it, 570, 625, 650, 675, and now it's 720. And they're like, wow, like they're coming out with a car like once every year, almost twice a year. They're going to kill their brand, but it hasn't hurt them at all. They've just been exploding. It's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, how many car companies sell? I don't even think Ferrari sells every single car that comes off the production line. As in, like, literally every car that rolls out of Woking is accounted for.
Right.
There's no extras. Like I can't just get in a car because there's no extras floating around.
Right.
Regardless of the $250,000 sticker price for a 570 or whatever. 186.
And then they're like their hypercars, like the Senna. It's just looking unbelievable.
Yeah, it's almost like a joke because you can't use the cars. Like they're so fast. You try to leave a parking lot in the rain and you're spinning the rear tires with 5% throttle and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing is a race car. Like,
See, that's
and it has a plate on it.
That's the thing is, yeah, I wonder, like, I think a lot of people just like to say they have it, I guess, and which is, I mean, valid, but
yeah, that's true. It's unfortunate though. I mean, we had a Senna out at Mid Ohio, and I hope it does get to go on track one day, but I highly doubt that it will.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I would, like, if I was ever in a position like that, I'd buy that Senna and I would have it on the track and just drive the piss out of it, just because that's what you should do. But I mean, the thing is, they're so sought after. It's an investment to buy it because the resale, I mean, they're always appreciating.
Just if you have an allocation for one, you could make $750,000. Just if you have an allocation, just by selling your allocation.
Yeah, it's kind of like the I don't know, new investment class almost.
Yeah, car allocations.
Yeah,
it's not untrue actually.
I've been seeing. I mean, even like these auctions. I saw an ad once, and they were doing. You could buy because like some of these like old Ferraris, they'll sell for like 20 or 30 million or whatever. And there was some service that was selling shares of one of those cars.
Yeah, I've totally seen this. I've seen this for a couple different companies. The antique car investment. I don't get it. I mean, I get it. I get why someone made the app, but I don't understand why the end user would do that. If you're going to do that, just buy regular stock.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I guess it
risk.
It is. I mean, why do people spend $500 million on a painting? But
well, that's more about storage than it is about actual investment.
Right.
But like, yeah, if you're gonna buy $100 of shares in a car,
yeah,
you might as well just buy $100 of Amazon stock, because to be honest, Amazon stock is gonna do way better than any car.
Probably. Or Tesla. I'm a big Tesla fan, even though I probably shouldn't be because I'm a racing fan. But
Tesla's just too contingent on what Elon's mood is on any day.
Oh yeah. Actually, I came from the trading world, I guess, so that always is interesting to me. And see, the thing is, Tesla as a stock, it's a hate the stock, love the company, type of type of investment. Like I wouldn't. I mean, I've traded it just on speculation. If they were down a lot, I mean, they're going to come out with some PR, and then it's going to spike again. But yeah, I wouldn't bank. Their volatility is just way too high. Plus, with the SEC and the tweets and all that, it's having the CEO addicted to Twitter.
Having the CEO getting high on
Joe Rogan, yeah. But that's part of the draw. That's why I love it, just because it's so funny and so fun to watch. Like, even because now it's so funny because like he's apparently into anime, and so he changed his Twitter profile picture to like some anime character and was like like posting
stuff. Like what? Like,
yeah. At the same time, yeah, he has SpaceX going to Mars, and they're gonna beat NASA.
Yeah, how can you be so like weird and you like I like anime? I'm gonna make it my Twitter profile, but then at the same time, like you're leading this company that's at the forefront of space travel in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the draw, man. That's the draw. I actually think he's gonna go down in history. I mean, there's names like Edison, Einstein. It's gonna be Elon Musk for sure.
Totally. It's either going to be that or he's going to turn out to be literally that supervillain from every movie ever where he's literally trying to take over the world.
There's definitely a good percentage chance it could go either way.
Yes. At least 30% chance of him being a supervillain.
Especially because, he's doing investments in like AI and then also doing like this Neuralink thing where you can connect your brain to the internet. And
yeah, I'm telling you. Total supervillain take over the world with the internet. The internet and self-driving cars.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, it's like, man, the convenience factor of having a self-driving car would be so nice.
Oh, 100. I'm totally with you. I bought my car because it would self-steer itself. The one I currently have.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It was like, this needs to drive itself down the highway.
Right.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Because it really is just a monotonous task that can be solved.
Like I could use my brain power much more effectively right now.
But then they're trying to do like this robo race thing, and that seems like a flop.
The concept is interesting. I think it's really cool if the idea that they can bring back like they can mimic the driving styles of certain drivers. Like if you could make the I want to call it like a risk curve.
Mm-hmm.
The risk algorithm, if you could change it for so that like one car would drive like Senna and one car would drive like Schumacher and one car would drive like Jacques Villeneuve or whoever. That would be kind of neat if you could like somehow condense something that they did and make that a trait of the car.
Sure. But that would help with PR too.
Yeah, that would be neat, and the programming, the actual task that they're trying to do is neat. It's just not that exciting. It is a really cool engineering problem and task. It's just not that exciting to watch, frankly.
Well, I think you've got like, say in video games, they have AI. Like, would I ever watch just AI race itself? I don't know, probably not.
Have you ever turned on our factor and like set an AI race going
and just watched it?
This is gonna be great racing.
Because it's usually kind of it's usually just a mess anyway.
It's the same thing. Does anybody just turn on an AI football match, soccer match, tennis match?
See what happens?
No. We as people want to watch other people do things. Like that's, we don't like. Save for cartoons and animated things on television, we want to watch people do things. We don't want to watch.
And that's what I say about F1 too. Is I think the reason they kill it so much is they dive deep into the character of the driver too.
Oh, and yeah, like it's the same. Like IndyCar, like I'd put IndyCar in the same way. They do a very good job of promoting the drivers as these larger than life, especially the top drivers, like to go with my Elon Musk supervillain comment as superheroes, like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because then they can help kind of set up a story too. But
Have you watched all of Drive to Survive?
I haven't yet. I
Okay,
haven't. I need
well,
to though.
They did a really good job with that.
Yeah. I was
They
talking to
got
James Pull about that. Yeah.
exactly what you're saying about like getting into the drivers' personalities. They did a great job, and it's extra good because there's no Mercedes or Ferrari. So
Oh, really?
yeah, so it's all about everyone else.
Right. Yeah, I really need to because I keep hearing that they did. It's an awesome documentary and it's getting a lot of. I mean, it's getting pushed pretty hard on Netflix too, which is cool.
There's a lot of racing stuff on Netflix here lately. It's and on, or maybe just in general. There's been a lot of racing stuff, kind of movies and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
We got like the Hurley Haywood movie, Drive to Survive, The Gentleman Driver, The Art of Racing in the Rain. There's another one that's not after The Art of Racing in the Rain. I don't know. There's a bunch. For some reason, we're all of a sudden interested in racing,
Which is cool. I mean, for the sport, I think even like what sim racing has done for the sport is huge because guys like Ross Bentley, he's talked like he's saying like he's always would always help more like gentleman drivers, but then all of a sudden in the last couple of years he's getting questions like crazy from sim racers, which is cool.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. That's pretty awesome.
Because he's like, yeah, and all of a sudden the sim racers started reaching out to me all the time, and which is cool, because you can kind of get in on for $300 you can be in, and then you kind of go down the rabbit hole from there.
Yeah, that's it. It's $300. Get yourself some pedals and wheels and stick it on your laptop and go to town.
Yeah, that's actually how I got started because I would say 2015. I was actually a trader for a trading firm out of Chicago, but I was living remotely from home. And yeah, I just got a set of Logitech pedals. I'd always been into the Gran Turismo, like on PS1, PS2.
Yeah.
I was always into that series just with the controller. But then I was like, you know what? It'd be really fun to try to just buy one of these Logitech wheels and get into that. And kind of I started looking around, saw iRacing, then started watching YouTube. You find these reviewers that are reviewing this sweet hardware, and I'm like, man, that's what I want to do. So kind of just
like, man, this stuff looks nice, and then
yeah,
you're
it's
like,
cool.
not many people actually make this stuff. Like,
Right.
oh, I can do this.
Right.
Probably about how you enter it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're hitting a market that is basically empty.
Right.
Except for save for like a few, and it's basically really expensive stuff or really cheap stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing is there's a lot of people coming in and not a whole lot of manufacturers because it's not necessarily easy. And these large companies, they can't really put say like Logitech or whatever, they're not going to be investing into this market yet because it's not quite big enough yet, but it's big enough for small, like micro factories, they call them.
It's big enough for you to actually like make it work,
right?
Not big enough for Logitech which is perfect because we don't want for Logitech to come in and build something.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Fnatic, they're doing an awesome job. They're kind of.
I just bought the F1, the special edition, 2019 rim.
Right. Did you get the direct drive?
Yeah, I'm waiting for my DD2 to ship.
Okay.
build a chip at the end of the month.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I'm sort of mostly worried about them because they're just doing an awesome job and they're really popular. And they also make it proprietary, so it's hard for me to make stuff that's compatible with them. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just working on. That's one thing is
there's nothing to keep anyone from just bolting yours onto a Fanatec quick release.
Well, the problem is they set it up so that there's a chip in there. So if you just bolted a wheel on just to the quick release, they turn off the force feedback.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. But so there's a company, SimRacing Machines. He makes like a little emulator, and so like hopefully that helps solve it. But it's an extra $150.
Does have a converter as well?
Not that I know of. I don't believe so.
I thought they did.
But yeah, I mean that's one thing is that's what's nice about me is I'm a one-person shop, and so I can be pretty flexible. You know, if it's custom work, if I see that, well, maybe we should try to make a standalone wheel that can bolt to everything, and that's what's been my most popular actually. The R1, it's just a regular 70 millimeter wheel, and it can bolt to pretty much anything. So, which is cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's growing a lot. There's a lot of companies that are completely sold out. Like I was even looking at, I was on the Hoisingfeld website for the last couple of weeks because I've been trying to get pedals because I'm building a streaming setup.
Yeah,
and they're just completely sold out. And
are they don't have any of their pedals?
Yeah, I was looking at the sprint ones and the ultimates. I was ready to drop, whatever, and they're just
whatever they wanted.
Everything is sold out.
Really? Have you even gone to like Demon Tweaks or something? See if they have them?
I haven't. I actually didn't look at any resellers. So I went with the HPP, which is cool because they're more of a GT style pedal, and then they're also made in the US.
Here's how you like those.
Yeah.
I've been looking at the SimTalk pedals, but if I'm like also for that price, I might as well just build my own pedals like that.
Right. Yeah, I only got the 2 pedal and they were like $1,000. So
it's all you need really.
Which
is not much point for a clutch.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing is I'm not doing anything that would need it unless I wanted to get into like Mazda and try to be realistic, but most people just use the paddle shifters for that anyway.
Yeah, I think that to me, that is a level of ridiculousness that is well beyond my understanding of the point of the simulator.
Right. Yeah, so it's cool. I mean, it's fun. It's cool to see that it's gaining so much popularity. I think they could do better in marketing, but I mean, they're doing a good job. So,
I think it's neat that there's the demand for the higher end stuff.
Right. Yeah, and it's growing too.
And that people like, for a while, for a long time, there hasn't been any of it. Like you haven't been able to get a replica wheel, or the replica wheels that you've been able to get are like toys.
Right.
Like now we have like actual real race car parts.
Right.
You're like what you're building is like a real race car part. It's not a toy. Like,
yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, I'm not. I've always been kind of technical, but I certainly have not been an engineer. And so I've gotten a lot of help from engineers on certain things, but the rest it's all been DIY basically. And yeah, I'm hoping to someday get to the point where I can have a series of wheels for the sim and also get some in real cars. That'd be freaking awesome, I think.
Yeah, that'd be so. I don't even know what the process is for making a steering wheel for race cars. If there's any sort of homologation process is.
Basically that's what I would like to have is I'd like to have a wheel where the only difference is the electronics, because you've got the electronics for the sim and then for the race car, which would be super cool. But
That would be quick.
but yeah, that's what I'm kind of working up to that point. I mean that because like the 488 wheel, the real one is like I remember like 13 grand or something like that.
Sounds about right.
And
Well, all GT3 reels are
yeah, like 10 plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, hopefully I'd like to be able to have something that can compete, but then bring it at a lower cost. Just because I'm a smaller shop, but then bringing in that technology, because I mean, these companies, they have, teams of engineers with tooling and CNC machining and all of this, and that's what drives the cost up, obviously. So if I can bring that to a smaller shop, I don't know, hopefully it'd be cool to be able to kind of merge that. That's kind of been the point of what I've been wanting to do, is merging the gap, because that gap with real and simulator is like always getting smaller.
Yeah, for sure.
So so then you use the simulator for racing, obviously. So I mean, you use it as a tool, but then do you do it like competitive sim racing too, or is it mainly just like for practice for a real race?
I would like to race on it more than I do, but frankly, I either crash into other people because I don't race on it enough and I don't quite know where the edges of the car are, or I get hit and I get angry and upset, and then I'm never doing this again, and then it's like 3 months before I do it again, and I just test. I consistently, what I always do is test. I
Right.
drive by myself and mess with the setup, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Right. That's what I've done a lot too, actually. The last couple of years, I've only done a few like official races, and mostly just because I don't have a whole lot of time anyway. And so it'd be just kind of testing and doing it for fun. Cause then like if you just hop into a race and either you're not prepared or you get binned in turn one, punted. And that's what happened this last week.
Yeah, and then like me, so I don't race at all, right? So I never raise my I rating. So then I like get good enough, or I feel like I'm good enough. I go race. I go and I roll in a race because my I rating sucks. I get put in a low split, and then you're in the split with all the dummies, and you get pushed out anyway. And it's just like this horribly cyclical scenario where you never actually. Yeah, like if you're gonna race an iRace, you gotta race all the time and be really good at it. So I just go and test it, play with setups, and drive around. Sometimes you host sessions with people, but I don't race very often.
It's crazy how competitive it's getting, especially like GT is by far the most popular.
Yeah,
and so yeah, I mean it's crazy. Even just from I've noticed even just from a couple years ago, like back from 2015 when I had first started, like my I ratings like hovers around 2000, and I'm kind of in the middle of all the people that really race for shit, and then like I feel like once you get above 2000, like 2500 plus, if you can race with them, it's pretty clean racing. But I'm having a hard time like getting to that level because it is so competitive and I don't have enough time to practice every day.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on. What kind of the rest of the season you'll be doing GT4 and GT3?
Yeah. So we have 2 days of testing next week for the GT3 car to get ready for Detroit, and then from then on, just a couple weeks of hitting the gym and trying not to get fat.
Right.
For the race.
Yeah, it's cool. Your story is cool because there's a lot of times, these guys will be racing since they're 3 or 4 years old, but being, relatively new, starting from grassroots and then working your way up just in the last, however, 6 years?
Yeah.
So
6 years, yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It'll be 7 really by this June.
Well, I hope to.
No, yeah, I've always taken the kind of the approach that if you came off track and you didn't learn something, whether it be good or bad, then it was a waste of a session.
Right.
You should be learning something every single time.
Well, what kind of failures have you had to overcome? I mean, because that's the thing, is like you're kind of living, I mean, in a way, the dream of what people want. I mean, because they think, oh, I can get in and I can work my way up someday to a factory seat. Well, I mean, it seems like whenever I talk to racing drivers, they say, well, it comes at a cost.
Yeah, it does. You have to have backing for one thing. Second, I mean, it was incredibly hard for me with racing in Germany, where you're immediately on the back foot just because you're not European.
Mm-hmm.
That was a tough blow, I guess. Yeah, I'm used to being American and kind of not, I don't want to say coddled, but used to coming in with that advantage of being American
Mm-hmm.
into everything. And that's totally not how it was. So that was a very interesting and humbling experience. Then, of course, I mean, the couple of times I've nicely been to car, those are always tough ones to get over.
Right.
Confidence-wise and financially, too. Sometimes you have to cover what you've destroyed.
Yeah, that's the scary part is, do you want to push it or have the fear of binning it and then having to be liable to pay for it?
Well, actually, and like Matt Plum doesn't pay for his crash day when he crashes stuff. It's granted, he also doesn't crash stuff very often.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when we were very first time, not very first, but very early on when we were testing the GT4 car in 2017, and our technical director Ray looked at him, he's like, "How much faster do you think you can go?" And I immediately spat a number out because wasn't thinking. I was like, "Oh, we can go this much faster." Matt looks at me and he looks back at Ray and he goes, "How many spares do you have?" So it's a good way. So it's part of it is knowing. But it goes back to your knowing where the limit is, but knowing how to drive under it. Frankly.
Right. Yeah, and that's what like Ross Bentley talked about. He's like, because I was trying to get some free tips on being able to go faster, and he's like, well, you got to know where your limit is, and then learn how to go a little bit over, and then without crashing. I mean, in a sim you can; it's not a big deal. But then being able to bring it back, and hopefully you can. Because like the pros, if they make a mistake, it's not going into the wall. They just went a little bit wide, and they learn something. And
slide a little bit, or whatever. That's what I was talking about before. Like I know the car. I know going into this corner, I'm going to brake at the 300 board, but maybe I don't. Maybe the car doesn't slow down exactly perfectly. So that is, in the grand scheme of things, a mistake. But now how you deal with it is what makes the rest of the corner.
Right. Yeah, very cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was nice talking with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So how can people get a hold of you? You have anything you'd like to kind of plug?
I'm most active on my Instagram. Try not to be too obnoxious in social media, but it's at Paul Holton Racing.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, yeah, thanks. We'll appreciate it. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Cool. Thank you very much.